Here we are talking about first-person shooters and talking about video games, and there is one video game that recently came out. In fact, it came out yesterday, and a lot of content creators are playing it, and it's closed, and only a key will be able to access it, and that is Gray Zone Warfare. Gray Zone Warfare came out yesterday, and it has been taking the internet by storm. Okay, it's been doing very good on Twitch, it's been doing all right on Kick, and it has just been gaining a lot of attention. And now, although I don't have access to it, and some of these opinions that I will be expressing here in a little bit are from an outside perspective, obviously I look into things before I really mention things, and I make sure I have like a good general understanding of it before I really form some opinions and stuff. But I do have some things here to talk about, but I think there's a lot of interesting things here mentioned by Moydog. Now, Moydog is a he makes a lot of content around tactical games. His main game being Squad. He makes YouTube videos. He does some live streams there, but his main thing is Squad. In fact, he runs some of the largest Squad servers available. And he played the game and he gave some feedback here. And I want to read through this and kind of break down some of this. Now, last night I spent a little while watching a variety of people. I watched a tiny bit of Shroud, but mostly Summit 1G playing the game. And I got a very good general understanding of Gray Zone Warfare and kind of how it plays, what it is. And I found a couple similarities with something that it may have. In fact, I think it did take inspiration from, but I don't know if they did it correctly or not. But let's take a look here at what he says and what his opinions are, because I think a lot of these are actually very viable. Okay. So Moydog goes through and says, first impressions of Gray Zone Warfare after 10 hours of playing it. 7 hours in a group, 3 hours as solo, with both PvE and PvP combat. Buckle up, because we've got a long list. Okay. And again, I'm going to break down some of this from what I've seen and all that, and we'll talk about it. Okay. The first thing he says here, runs amazing on 4K series GPUs, 80 equals 150 FPS consistently. This is Unreal Engine 5, and I'm not 100% sure if Unreal Engine 5 games are CPU or graphics card dependent, so I would take this with a grain of salt. From what I've heard from a variety of different people that I've watched and looked into and stuff like that, the game doesn't run very well. From some of the people that I've talked to. But obviously, like I said, I don't have the game myself, so I'm not sure if the game is CPU or GPU dependent, and I don't know what everybody's specs were. But from my understanding, the game wasn't extremely optimized, but it's also not the worst optimized ever. It's kind of like in the middle. It definitely needs more optimization. He goes on to say the maps and graphics are very nice, which I agree. Unreal Engine 5, fantastic. If somebody's running through the bushes, you can hear them running through the bushes. And I was watching Summit 1G, right? He's on the other side of the fence. He hears an AI walking on one side of the fence, and there's bushes that like are taller than the fence. And while you hear him walking, you can see the bushes move. So you can track him through the bushes because the bushes move while the player's walking through them. Such a cool feature, such a cool little thing there, more immersive in my opinion. But ultimately, graphics, I watched it. I mean, the graphics aren't terrible. I mean, obviously they're not 4K ultra realistic ray tracing crazy cyberpunk looking things, but it's not bad considering what kind of a game it is. And we're going to break into that right here because he goes on to say the persistent nature of the game is extremely cool and makes it seem like the main base is alive. Now, we're going to go through all this, and I want to come back to this point here because I have more things to expand on this idea. The vendor slash gear slash main base UI feels much cleaner and less clunky than something like Tarkov's menu simulator, in which I agree. I've seen them using some of the UI in the game, and it definitely seems a lot more streamlined and not as UI simulator as Tarkov. Tarkov is kind of like, hey, you go back to the main menu screen, you go through your inventory, you're flipping through 1,000 different UIs, and you could literally make a song montage out of you flipping through through UIs in Tarkov. Okay, so it definitely seemed like the UI was okay. However, there's not as many UIs in Gray Zone as Tarkov because Tarkov has a lot more features. So again, take this a little bit of a grain of salt. Dying and being able to redeploy to meet up with your buddies or exfil while they continue on is great for keeping up with your friends and playing together. This is actually a fantastic feature here due to the fact that the map is persistent and you keep playing it and keep coming back. The match never ends. There is no end time of the match. That doesn't exist. So if you die, you respawn at main, you re-gear, you grab your helicopter, you go out and redeploy and meet back up with your friends, right? It's not like, again, Tarkov, where you die and that's it. You die and you go do a scav run or something, right? Obviously, Tarkov's a lot more difficult, as well as Tarkov has a map timer. They don't have persistent worlds and stuff. So, again, there's some differences there. The game's not trying to be exactly like Tarkov, but it definitely has some Tarkov inspired as well as some other game inspired aspects to it as well. Okay. All right. So then we go on to say that exploring and discovering hang on. So he then goes on to say exploring and discovering landing zones you can use prior to unlocking them is a great way to give players freedom in game. Okay. So exploring, so basically how the game functions is that there's certain landing zones. These landing zones are for helicopters and you unlock them throughout the game, different areas for you to be able to fly into or fly out of as well. And it gives some cool little things there, right? You get to learn the different spots and be able to expand your reach of being able to fly to different areas in the map. And again, I'm going to break this down and I'm going to go into it a little bit. Okay. Weapon modification is easy to use, also partially due to the fact that there's not really a ton of weapon modification. There's a little bit, but there's not like an expansive amount. Okay. Weapon sounds are poor and combat sounds very flat. I will say I have heard some of the gun sounds, people shooting guns and stuff, and yeah, there wasn't really a lot of crazy stuff about it, but I mean, it works. It's better than nothing, right? But yeah, I know some people complained a lot about the weapon sounds and stuff. So again, that's something they're going to work on. The game is still really, really early on. It needs a lot of work still, but it's at least functional. Okay. Gunplay feels very stiff, akin to ground bench or alpha/beta versions of Ready or Not. I think this has to deal with the fact that I actually don't know. This is actually interesting. I don't remember if does it have dual render scopes? I'm not sure if I remember. I'm not sure if I know if it has in picture scopes or not. I'm not sure. But that could be one aspect of the gunplay feeling very stiff and stuff. Uh, you know, it's kind of like, I don't know. To me, while watching it, it kind of was like almost like Call of Duty type shooting. There wasn't really a much of a personality per gun. Where I mean, go look at like Tarkov, for example. Every gun has got like its own very distinctive feel of craziness. This game here is very, again, very stiff. It's more like Call of Duty or Ground Branch. It's more of the gun's not really meant to have like a big personality to the gun, right? Which I'm curious to see if they're going to change. And I think they honestly are going to have to change it if they want to really kind of help some things here as well. Or they could always say the super casual route, which is nothing wrong with that, and just keep it being very stiff. It's not like it's a skill, like a crazy skill to be able to use the weapons like it is in Tarkov or something like Squad. So it makes sense. So we'll see what kind of route they want to go. They want to do a mixture of casual as well as competitive. Being able to revive your buddies from a coma, give them blood and meds, and then keep on going is very fun and interactive experience. I did see this. This is actually really, really cool. So if you get knocked out or get shot in a certain spot of the body, because yes, you can, it's almost like a deer hunter game. You can get shot in certain parts of the body that will affect you more than others. And you could be put into a coma, and your teammates can give you like a blood bag, a blood transfusion. They can give you, a survival kit to, do a surgical patch on you or something in the middle of the battle. There's a variety of those things. And he goes on to say medical/healing system is extremely detailed and good for immersion. However, it is overwhelmingly time consuming when actually in combat or danger areas. And I think this has to deal with a bit of the fact that there are some aspects of the game that are casual, some aspects of the game that are like military simulator, like super realistic style. So hardcore. So again, I think the identity of the game is in a interesting spot where it's kind of in the middle. It has some hardcore aspects but some casual aspects. And are they going to try to drive the line straight down the middle, or are they going to choose what side they want to go, either casual or hardcore? That's the question we're going to see as we goes on as time goes on. PvE combat feels very unrewarding since enemies can be bullet sponges despite not even having a shirt on, while you can get one shot through armor. This has been a very consistent issue that has been happening with the game, where enemies are bullet sponges. You can sit there and shoot them 4 times in the head before they die. And yeah, that's definitely a bit of an issue. The fact that I have to shoot somebody 4 times before they die, I mean, and they're a bot, I mean, that's a bit of an issue, don't you think? And then the bot doing a 180 and insta one tapping you in the head or through your heart, which even though you have armor on, it doesn't matter. That is supposedly a bug. They did come out to say that's a bug, and there's supposed to be a hot fix for that. Not really a hot fix, but a patch update today that should fix that issue, where the bots, the AI should be a little bit better. On top of the I will say there are a lot of AI. All right, but we're gonna get into that. We're gonna break into that some more here once we get done. This there's a like I said, this list is giant. AI either stares straight at the sky while their buddy dies next to them, or one shot kill / critically injures you. Right. So again, that kind of goes on to the PvE combat. Solo progression is painfully time consuming, as the enemy TTK and medical system will bog you down without a buddy to help you out. Looting feels shadow and uninteresting. There's not a lot of loot in the game. Unlike Tarkov, there's a lot of like different, statue figures or figurines, or there's a bunch of variety of things that you can pick up and loot for more money. This game doesn't have that implemented yet, so the items that you get are very limited. You don't really get any special items to kind of help you earn money. But again, this is all just like a current test of the game to see how it goes. There is an issue with, I saw it last night. There's an issue like on my Operation Arch Doorstop server with rubber banding. The rubber banding in the game is pretty bad. I mean, it's not awful, unplayable, but it definitely is not the greatest. There's a lot of rubber banding in the game, which again, I have some opinions on that. Despite completing 10 hours of quests, I still have no meaningful weapon unlocks or gear progression. 10 hours of questing, okay? Questing, not even looking for crazy PvP fights or anything. Questing, and they have no meaningful weapon unlocks or gear progression. Okay, okay. Enemies near locked buildings appear to have those keys in their loot table, which is a very player-friendly way to manage gameplay. There are weapon keys, or there are door keys that characters have on them. They can be found in the pockets of AI, and it's typically only in AI that are near the locations for those keys to be used at. Enemies are also almost exclusively not inside buildings, making towns and villages feel very odd, which goes back to AI needing some improvements, of course. There are far too many quests that force players to go over the same areas again and again with very little differentiation in the actual gameplay loop. Much of the flavor text for quests are vague and force players to spend a frustratingly long amount of time retracing their steps. PvP is very forced at the moment, with bored players going to LZs and camping areas or traveling into intro cities, which are supposed to be PvE eccentric. Again, I got some opinions on this as well because I don't agree with this. PvP is very forced at the moment. I I don't know what um I don't know what he meant by this, but the game is not forcing PvP. Okay, Gray Zone Warfare right now does not force PvP at all. All right, at all. All they do, they don't force PvP at all. There's nothing. Okay. In fact, PvP is insanely hard to find, but again, we'll talk about it. You can literally stand next to the enemy little bird as it touches down on a landing zone. Watch the player dismount in a forced animation they can't cancel and kill them without even having a chance to react. I saw this last night on Summit 1G stream. There was a helicopter coming in with some people. Okay, there was a helicopter coming in, dropping off some people, and they were talking to them because this game has local proximity chat. You can talk to the other team in proximity chat. It's really cool. I love that feature in games like these. And he was like, hot swap or whatever, and then they went away. They called in their helicopter, came in. Summit 1G's helicopter came in. They got on it. Summit 1G's teammate died, and he was like, "Wait, how did you die?" And people were pointing out that was an enemy helicopter. The helicopter that Summit 1G ran up to and was like, "Yo, hot swap" or something. That was an enemy helicopter, which he had no idea, and none of the players really recognized that that was an enemy helicopter. And they just kind of switched out. Like, even though that was an enemy helicopter, it was not friendly, landing in the exact same landing zone. You can just camp landing zones, which is a major issue. You just camp landing zones if you want PvP, and well, it's just not fun. It's a forced animation. There's nothing they can do about it. The moment they get out of the helicopter exit animation, they are available to get one tapped. So if you have a coordinated server of your team that goes and camps every single landing area, one person can kill an entire. There's only 4 people that can be on one helicopter at a time. And one person can one tap 4 people very easily when they're limited on where they can go. So it's a little interesting. Due to easy redeployment and lack of meaningful gear, PvP is not nearly as high stakes as something like Tarkov, making for fun engagements, but a relatively shallow gameplay loop, which gets old. Again, the gunplay and stuff right now, the PvP is not really anything super crazy to really go wild about. It's not, again, Tarkov. If you go with a big kit and you lose it, it sucks because it's gone. It is gone. Good luck getting it back, right? This game here, you could just get a quick re-gear, redeploy out there, go find your body, grab your kit back. If you lose your other kit, doesn't matter. Go back out and get your kit again. There's not a lot of high stakes for losing your gear. There's not. Positive ID in PvP is absolutely atrocious. All factions start with the same gear during character creation and have no way to visually mark who's friendly and who's enemy without opening your map. Again, this is very similar-ish to Squad, but Squad at least has different factions that look completely different sometimes. There's a few that look very similar, but most of the time they look completely different. But this game here, everybody looks the same. The only way to identify if that's an enemy is constantly checking your map, which again, I play Squad and I constantly check my map anyways, but you have to always have your map open and checking your map constantly to see where your friendly teammates are and if that's an enemy that you're looking at or not, so that you don't team kill. VoIP only lets you speak for 15 seconds at a time, and then you have a 5-second cooldown, making it extremely difficult to have conversations with in-game comms. So the game has a in-game preventatives mic spamming feature where you can only voice chat for 15 seconds before you have a cooldown, basically. Um, Although it's a pretty good idea to help prevent mic spamming, it's a bad idea because if you're trying to like talk to your teammate a lot, coordinate information, or be like, hey, I need this, I need that, I need this, you have 15 seconds. After those 15 seconds, a 5-second cooldown before you can voice chat again. So what are people doing to avoid that? They're just using, very rarely they use VoIP. Otherwise, they're just all in Discord. Movement feels very floaty. Your character will seemingly glide around and jump as if they're on the moon. Arm movement / weapon holding is very odd and visually awkward when moving around. Sprinting looks comical, similar to someone trying to run to the bathroom. This is true. I seen that last night. The sprinting animation is really weird. The guy like holds his gun up and he like I don't know, dude. He does some kind of dance run. Yeah, and exactly. He looks like he's doing the pee-pee dance. Okay. There are no radios or other ways to communicate with your squad apart from proximity chat. This takes away a bit of the immersion because most people will just use Discord. People are going to use Discord anyways, but there's no radios. You can't radio your squad members. So if you want to team up with people that are outside of your, if you want to team up with people that are outside of your, your friend group or whatever, you got to have them on Discord. Most people don't want to do that. But if you can run with a squad and be like, hey, yo, I'm on radio frequency, this, then that would be sick. But if you die and you get looted, an enemy could pick up your radio and listen to your conversations on your radio frequency. Dude, imagine if you could if you accidentally tapped into an enemy radio frequency, dude, it'd be so cool, man. It'd be so cool. Bad for streamers, but it'd be so cool for gameplay wise. But the issue is balancing it with streamers, though. Little birds will not let you get off once you get on, which can result in accidentally leaving squad mates who aren't ready or accidentally taking the wrong chopper. Reviving players too close to buildings can glitch revive players into the building. It's a bug. Title menu music is DMCAing streamers and copyright claiming YouTubers. Now, this has been addressed. Gray Zone Warfare has addressed that issue, that there are copyright issues on the main menu music. They have since disabled the main menu music to avoid the DMCA copyright issues, but that is ridiculous as to why is there DMCA on the main menu copyright music? Why? Where did they get the music from? That's my question. Very interesting. However, there's a bunch of different points in here that I want to talk about. That PvP is forced with bored players going to landing zones and the map being persistent. This game, in my opinion, is highly inspired by another game. It is a mix between two games, Escape from Tarkov and PlanetSide 2. All right? Here's why. PlanetSide 2 is a very old game by Daybreak that has a giant persistent continent is what they call it. It's a giant map that is huge. And that is something like this right here. This is Hassan. This is an example of it. This is a huge map. I mean, I'm pretty sure this map is maybe on the same size of Gray Zone Warfare, I would say. If not, maybe even a little bit bigger. Okay, this is PlanetSide 2, and it's huge. Now, the game mode in this is that there's all these like little zones here that you have to go capture. So obviously, Gray Zone did not copy that. Gray Zone is a looter shooter, right? So Escape from Tarkov, but the idea of the persistent world, I think, comes from this, because not only is this a persistent world on PlanetSide, this is seamless transitions. Although you can, for example, go from your main base and fly out here, or you can spawn out there, which is obviously a little bit different than Gray Zone, but you could. So this is a persistent, you can run across the entire map if you want without hitting a single loading zone. You can go into buildings without hitting a single loading zone. There are 3 factions. Gray Zone Warfare has 3 factions as well, on one map. It's crazy, right? Just came in. What game are you talking about? This is a game called PlanetSide 2, but we're talking about Gray Zone Warfare. Okay. Now, speaking about the map size, there's 2 different things here. Again, PlanetSide 2, persistent world. Yes, it's a different game mode. Persistent world, seamless transitions, and 3 factions. However, the map I would say is honestly on as big as Gray Zone Warfare, I would say. And again, seamless, there's no loading screens, okay? However, this game has a limit of 333 players per faction. Now, again, I know the gameplay of PlanetSide 2 is way different, okay? It's not a looter shooter. 333 players per team, meaning that there are gunfights that are 100 versus 100 players in a small compact zone with no lag. It's insane. This game is truly ahead of its time. The fact that you could have 200 versus 200 in a single zone either without any lag and with vehicles. It's crazy. Now, the reason why I bring this up is that means that they technically have a limit of 2,000 players, but based on the research, it seems like they limit each continent to 1,000 players at a time, being on a single continent map. And again, the game is obviously different. There's vehicles. It's a lot more casual, bullet spongy, not super serious like Gray Zone Warfare. But Gray Zone Warfare has a map that is 42 square kilometers. DayZ map is 225 square kilometers. So it's pretty big compared to the size of the DayZ map. However, Gray Zone has the ability for 16 players on each team, meaning that in this entire 42 square area map here, you can only have 48 players on a single server, meaning that it is flooded with AI. There are AI everywhere. And for you to run into a player is insanely rare. Insanely rare. I was watching Summit 1G last night, and he got into a fight. Okay. He got into a fight. And basically in the fight, he was against other players, and in that battle, when he died or whatever, he went back to base. And when he went back to base, people were talking, saying, hey, there's players here, right? Let's go here. Guess where people were going? Where the players were, because they wanted the PvP, right? They wanted the PvP. It's literally like you take all this time looting and running through Running Simulator to find where the action is. Then if you die, you go back to main, you tell your teammates, hey, there's action here, and then that little area becomes a bit of a battle zone. Okay. But then again, if there's players who want to do questing only, there's 16 players per team, 3 teams per map per server, 48 players total. If let's say 8 of those players go on questing, there's a good chance you'll never see them. So when Gray Zone came out and said that you could play the game and not see a single player, that is very true. But that means that the single player experience, the PvE, needs to be super immersive and very entertaining, or I think they're going to have a very big issue here. I think they're going to have a very big issue because there's not going to be a lot of PvP. There's not a lot of it. It's very rare for you to run into PvP. You need to hold players over with the aspect of looting, with the aspect of fighting PvE. There needs to be things to entertain people. And I have a bad feeling that they're not going to be able to capitalize on this. That basically people are going to start getting bored because they're running through the woods for 10 years. They go fight AI that's not really that difficult. Or, I mean, right now the AI is broken good. But even when they do, even if they can make the AI similar ish to players, it's still just not as special. You could sit there and play for 10 hours and not run into a single player if you got that unlucky, right? You have to go try to hunt down and find the zones that those players are in, which typically means camping landing zones, which goes back to what he said down here somewhere, right here. You can literally stand next to an enemy little bird as it touches down on a landing zone, watch the players dismount in a forced animation they can't cancel, and kill them without even having a chance to react. It goes back to this aspect. If people want PvP, they go camp the landing zones because it's the only way that they're going to really find some players. Otherwise, it's unbelievably hard to find any players. And I think that is also partially due to the fact that there's not that many players on the map. DayZ is, yes, a way bigger map, but as the solo gameplay is a bit different as well. But there's, again, 48 players on a 42 square kilometer map. I honestly think you need a little bit more. If you had some more players than 16 per faction, I think it would be way better. See you later, Scooby. Appreciate it, dude. Take care, dude. Take care. Joey, of course, welcome back. So I'm very curious to see how Gray Zone is going to go about it. There's supposed to be a big update today, this morning. It could already be out. I have no idea. That is supposed to improve the game some more, right? Improve the game some more. So very curious to see what's going to happen here, what's going to go on, and if anything's going to really we'll see if it can last. I have a feeling that it's going to be another one of those games, unfortunately, going to have a lot of hype in the start, but I think it might die out over time. The gameplay loop, I think, is very, very struggling right now. And yes, again, it's very early. They don't know of a release date. I have a feeling after the 7-day test, because the game is available to key owners for 7 days. After these 7 days here, they're gonna probably do a big announcement saying, "Hey, we realize after this test we have a lot of work to do. We got our heads down working on it like crazy, and they need to majorly focus on gameplay loop because." I think it's going to struggle a little bit. It's kind of like some Among Us questing. The questing doesn't feel so special. Looting doesn't feel special. Fighting PvE doesn't feel that special, that rewarding either. PvP is extremely rare. It is rewarding when you get into PvP. And you don't die instantly. So the PvP is, all right, not too bad. The fact that you can talk to the enemy team is really funny as well. It's a great aspect. BattleBit did this, and I think it's fantastic. I think Operation Harsh Doorstop should add that at some point too. The ability to talk to the other team adds so much more content and stuff. It's really cool. But again, this is an outsider perspective. I haven't played the game, but I've looked into a lot of the game already, watched a lot of gameplay and stuff. I think it's got some potential, but they definitely have a lot to work on for gameplay loop, especially to keep players entertained. Because yeah, now should they add like 100 players on the map? Probably not. I don't think the map's big enough for that. But I mean, 48 players total. I mean, actually, you know what? 100 players. Nah, like maybe like 70 players, maybe something like that. Somewhere's around there. I think would be a great amount of players for a map this size. And the battles is super fun, man. I watched Summit 1G. He got into a big fight against Shroud's faction last night. And I mean, there were like at least 10 people in one little area. And it was fantastic. It looked super entertaining. And I watched his chat. I was keeping an eye on Summit's chat. When Summit was like doing his regular stuff, hunting for players, his chat hated it. There were, oh, this is boring, running simulator, whatever. Summit was getting bored trying to see if he could drink water out of streams, and just, Summit seemed a little bit bored, just running simulator, right? But then when they got in the action, his chat loved it. He loved it. It was a big warfare against two different factions. Everybody coordinating and pushing and taking cover, healing. It was really entertaining. And I even really enjoyed it. And I was like, yo, this is fantastic. This has great potential. But yeah, once that was over, it was back to running simulator, fighting an AI, either killing the AI after 20 bullets or getting insta heart shot or headshot from the AI. It I don't know. It's got some work. It's a great start though. It's a great start. I think honestly, it has a better rollout than most games, to be fair. Yes, there's rubber banding on the server. Rubber banding's not very good. Well, there's rubber banding, but still to be expected. So really cool idea. I'm curious to see if they're going to be able to really push this and kind of level out the gameplay loop and make it so that way their players keep coming back and they can play the game however they want. I'm curious. So I'm also curious to see how many content creators are going to still be grinding this game. What 7 days would be Thursday of next week. So come Tuesday, come Wednesday, I'm curious how many people are still going to be grinding this game, or if they're going to go back to their main game. And I think today is a giant deciding factor, in my opinion. Today, I think is a giant deciding factor whether or not they will players will get bored. They play it so much they get bored of it that they don't even want to play anymore. They go play their regular game or not. So again, lots of information there, very long-winded talk about this, but I'm very passionate about this stuff, the game design, the game development of this, very passionate about it. I think the game is fascinating. It has a great amount of social media influence. And I'm curious to see how long they're going to be able to hold the attention span of some players with the current gameplay loop, because I think at the moment it's still lacking a little bit. But we'll see what they do with the hot fixes that they release throughout today, throughout the weekend. I would imagine the team is not going to get much sleep. Would be my guess. They're not going to get a lot of sleep. They're going to probably grind, and post updates like crazy. I have a feeling. So yeah, pretty cool. But anyways, there you go. That's your Gray Zone Warfare. Very long-winded, but that's my opinions on it. Again, I don't know if I'm going to get access to it at some point. I'd be interested to play it myself. Don't know if my PC can handle it very well, but